Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our public meeting. Thank you for joining us today. I have Chase Phillips here with me. He is our planning director. He will be going over the changes that you will be seeing in December. So how this will work is I will hand it over to Chase and he will present his presentation and let you know about what's coming and what the changes are. If you have any questions, please hold them to the very end and put them in the chat box. At the very end of his presentation, I will go through the questions and we will answer to the best of our ability. So Chase, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Brianna. I'm assuming, can you see my screen, the public outreach session
Yes.
slide? Okay, perfect. Okay, well, let's go ahead and kick this off. And I don't believe is it changing on your end? It's not on my side.
It is not changing.
Okay, great. We'll get it figured out here. I think this is gonna work either. Well, I apologize, everyone. We will get this fixed very quickly, but
Chase, if you cannot get this fixed, I will also post your PowerPoint on the website. So if we're not able to present today, don't worry. You can also find all of this information on our website later this week.
no, we'll get it posted, I'm sure. Everyone, a lot of our riders got up early. I'm sure I can figure this out. My screen, for some reason, seems to be stuck on one slide, and I don't know why that's the case. I
You
bet
can
we
try
can.
to send it to me and I can present it, or I can show it on my screen if you need it.
I think you have it, Brianna.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I apologize, everyone. This hasn't happened so far. We've had pretty good luck with virtual meetings up to this point. So. And it looked like it was just fine earlier, so. Okay, here we go, Brianna, I think we're good. I think. Okay. This should have. Okay, can you see my screen now?
I can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And it's changing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry everyone for that hang up there. We made it through. So okay, so as Brianna said, so I'm Chase Phillips, I'm the director of planning. So I'm going to go over our changes. And first off, kind of giving you a little bit of background. I do really want to emphasize that a lot of the changes that we're making, or really all of them, but a lot of the changes that we're making really are direct responses from either public meetings that we've had in the past, recent, like the ones that changes that we heard you say in the past public meetings, but we weren't able to make them. This really is a response to our riders who really wanting to improve our service. We've got a pretty small budget to serve a pretty big city. Just giving you a little bit of context, Tulsa's 250 square miles, city proper, and we've got around little less than 45 buses to do that. So we really are making the changes that we feel like we have to make just to overall best serve our customers. It's all about trade-offs really at the end of the day. but this is a response from our riders. So I really want to emphasize that. A lot of the changes that we're going to be making are really changes to frequency. So we're able to boost frequency on some of our core routes that really have the highest ridership. And we are able to improve the reliability. So reliability is something that we constantly monitor on a daily basis. Everyone on my team and several other teams get emails every morning about what were the top 5 routes the day before that had the most issues with not being on time and breakdowns and things like that nature. And so we really were able to make a lot of changes to routes in that regard too for this sign up. So we were pretty excited about that. Another big thing for this is microtransit. At this point, if you haven't heard about microtransit, Brianna can probably give you a pretty quick rundown. But overall, it is an on-demand service. It is a door or a curb-to-curb service. So instead of thinking about a bus that runs along a fixed route, like the big buses that you see, they stay on the same street, all the time. Microtransit operates in a little zone. So it's a geographic area, maybe 4 square miles, something like that. And you can book a trip on what you can do it on GoPass. You can do it online, or you can call into the call center. Any one of those 3 options, and you can book a trip to pick you up at outside your home or your apartment or wherever you're trying to go, and it will drop you off anywhere within that zone, including connecting to fixed routes or connecting to other microtransit zones if it's a nighttime or Sunday service, part of that function. So microtransit's really a new technology. It's new across the country, but it's something that we are really still figuring out how to best use it for Tulsans, what makes sense for our bus system, and how to supplement our local bus service with microtransit, and really continue to provide public transportation in areas that just don't have the demand to warrant a regular fixed route bus route. So microtransit's a really great option that we're still learning a lot about. And another key feature that changes this sign up are job access. Tulsa Transit, we've partnered with City Council, we've partnered with various people in the community, businesses, to try to provide and expand job access to a lot of the employers, both in North Tulsa and Northeast Tulsa. There's a lot of large like Amazon, Costco, several really manufacturing areas up there. There's a lot of jobs there, but they're disconnected from the rest of the community in a lot of ways. And so, and especially for our transit ridership, those employers are really hard to get to. And so we feel like we've tried things in the past. If you've been with us for a while, you might remember the WIN service, which was kind of a large loop around that went around North Tulsa. That was one iteration that didn't work out very well. But for various reasons, we think that we've actually come up with a much better solution to try to serve that large geographic area. And we're excited about it. So again, it's microtransit. So we're kind of figuring out what works, but this is definitely a real legitimate attempt. And so we hope it works out. So here's an overview. I'm not going to go into every one of these in detail right now, but overall, so I'm going to talk about microtransit, so Nightline and Sunday. We're going to talk about changes to our microtransit during the daytime. Again, I mentioned 2 new zones. So both of them, one is in the Turley, North Tulsa area, and another one is in Northeast Tulsa. So we'll talk about that. In terms of our local bus service, the 2 big changes that are really coming, we are eliminating Route 109. And primarily, the biggest reason is because the ridership is very low. So a little bit of background on that. Well, I'll talk about a little bit of background on that route, but the ridership on the Route 109 has been very low. It's well below what we would consider to be a good bus route. And so after having that in place for a year, we've really decided our resources are better spent and better served to the community as a whole elsewhere. So we are removing that route. And then we are making some geography changes to Route 110. I think overall, the route actual service to Route 110 is staying, so it's still going to serve the vast majority of where riders are going along that route. We know that by looking at the ridership data and where people get on and off. And then the frequency is still staying the same. It's still going to be a 30-minute route. And then there are three areas that aren't served with that, and we're picking up another one actually. But those are going to be picked up with the new microtransit zone. And ultimately, we think that those improvements that we're making are really good for that route. That route really kind of, if you were going from downtown all the way up to like Warehouse Market and Turley, that it's a really long trip. That route made a lot of turns and it did a lot of things that really a local fixed route bus shouldn't do. And so we think that we've made a really good compromise that serves those areas in a good way, but also makes that a better service. So, and then the other changes, so I mentioned improved frequency. We've got two routes, two of our core routes, Route 130, which is actually our second most utilized route after the Arrow. That is going to every 30 minutes, and then Route 140 is going to every 35 minutes. Route 140 is, as you've probably heard, is the next BRT route as soon as that all gets funded. And it's also a top 5 route in our system. So a lot of ridership there as well. So hopefully those two changes will really improve and have impacts on a lot of our riders. And then I mentioned the reliability thing that we were able to do. And so we were able to make some timing changes and some adjustments to Route 112, 114, and 320, all to improve the reliability. Those routes have, especially 112 and 114, those routes have really struggled with reliability. And so we think that those are good things for the riders that we're excited about. And here's a system map. I'm going to show this really quick just to give you an overview. This is our daytime system map, but I do want to note the 2 new microtransit zones. So it's the red zone. It's in the northwest corner of the city, so it's labeled as 8. That is one of the new microtransit zones. And then the blue line, that's Route 110. So you're familiar with that. That is what that route will look like. And it actually looks a lot like what this route did in the past as well. So it's a lot more streamlined. It's kind of more direct. It should be shorter trip times from the start to the end, and a little more predictable because again, that route, we did get complaints. That route made a lot of different turns. And so this cleans that up a lot and makes it look like a fixed route, I would say. So, and function in that regard. So, and then notice the green zone in Northeast Tulsa. So, so again, on the far north end of that is Costco, Amazon. I didn't mention the airport, but the airport is also served by this zone. So that's daytime service. A good thing about this zone is that it connects to the rest of our fixed route system, which is something that the wind didn't really do based on the times. So we are really excited about this. So. Okay, so let's get into it. So as I mentioned, Route 109 is being removed. This route, some of the background on this route, a lot of the vision behind it was trying to provide a really good transit option for our riders to be able to get to the gathering place. That was part of the vision behind this. And so we monitored that over the course of the last year, especially during the summer, during months of free fare, where you would expect to see higher ridership, and especially during the summer as well. You have more people hoping to go to the gathering place. Overall, the gathering place really was the primary destination for building this route, because a lot of the other destinations, especially on the south end, they're accessible by multiple other routes. So, if you're trying to go from downtown all the way to like 81st and Lewis, primarily you do have, there were at least 3 options to do that. And so, Route 109, but also the BRT, which is a huge public investment and has been a big success from a transit perspective, and Route 112, they all kind of do that travel pattern. And so Route 109, with the gathering place not being very successful and the overall ridership on the route, it's had, I believe since April, maybe before that, it's averaged 4,000 trips per month. So when I say 4,000 trips per month, if someone who takes that route in two directions, that's really 2,000 people. It's by far the lowest performing route in our system outside of some of the route that goes in Broken Arrow and the route that's in Jinx. It's pretty far from our metrics in terms of like what is a high performing route or even just a good route in our system. It's a third of that threshold. And so it's really, as much as we hate to cut routes, that is not something that we take lightly. We really do consider the impacts that has on all of our riders. We do think that resource is much better spent elsewhere. Again, just to keep in reference, because this typically surprises people. We only have about 43, 44 buses, big buses out on the street at any one point in time. And so with most of our routes not being very frequent, that means people who are navigating the entire city, a single trip might take them, 3 different bus routes and, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe, which is really not acceptable from our perspective, though it is a reality we deal with, but it means that we have to make compromises like this. When something is just not being utilized by our riders, that resource is better spent elsewhere. As hard as decision that is. But I will tell you the impact of this change and some of the others that are like this, we're able to improve frequency on 2 routes and reliability on 3 routes. Or 4 routes actually. And so these are the types of changes that we're able to make because we're not leaving resources in places that they're just not being used. So, and I'm happy to facilitate and take any questions on this afterwards. Next route. So Route 110. So Route 110, as I mentioned earlier, so we did make some geography changes, and I apologize. This slide is a little bit busy, so it's kind of hard and confusing to read. So I did a zoomed in option on it to the left, that left square there, but it's pretty busy. So what you see on the map, the larger map, the red lines, that's the new version of Route 110. And so each of the little orange lines that are dotted, that's former geography that is cut off from the core Route 110 now today. In December, that won't be served by Route 110. So that includes 3 destinations: Warehouse Market, the Dream Center, and Westview Clinic. All of those are going to be picked up and now served by this new thing that a lot of our city is excited about, and a lot of our community is really excited about, microtransit. So the on-demand service, I'm not supposed to say it's like Uber or Lyft because it's not, but in a way, that's the best reference point for a lot of people to think of. It's a shared ride, so anyone can be in that trip. You can book a trip from the grocery store to your house, as long as both of those places are within a single zone. And for $1.75, you get a curb to curb, like a door to door service almost, for $1.75, which is a really good deal for a lot of people. It is new, so you have to learn how to use microtransit and how to book the trips. It's not a normal bus that comes along a specific street. It's a little more real time than that. But it is a huge improvement, and especially this route. Some of the reasons why this happened. Take Westview Clinic for instance. Westview Clinic is, it's a really important destination for our riders, but we do take, and I know that it's because of the incline that it's at. It's really difficult for a lot of the users at Westview Clinic to get down to the street. And so where the bus is at. So we actually pulled the bus up into Westview Clinic, which is not really something that a 40-foot bus should be doing. And that impacts time. That's all of these little turns that this route did. So whether it's the loop that it did at in Turley, or going over to the Dream Center or Osage Casino or the Westview Clinic, like all of these things all kind of together, they add a lot of time to this route, and it means we have a lot of resources devoted just to this one route. And which is important because Route 110 is a great bus route. It's really utilized, and we totally recognize and acknowledge that and maintain that type of service. But it does mean that we needed to make some changes to it to make sure that that is a good bus route, and also utilize the new technology that we have in microtransit. And so, and we think this is a great application to both. And we're actually able to expand public transportation service through these changes, as we're now on the south end of that microtransit zone that you see. We're also able to pick up a lot of the two senior living facilities that are just north of Gilcrease Expressway, right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard. So that's something it used to be served by another bus route, but had been removed 4 or 5 years ago. And now we're able to serve that with microtransit, which is maybe even a better type of public transportation service for a lot of those facilities anyways. And I would say that microtransit is a much better fit for Westview Clinic as well. And so we think this changes overall. Was needed, and we are excited about it. So the new version of Route 110 that will be effective in December, it still is going to come every 30 minutes, but it's actually going to be a shorter trip time from the start to the finish. There's a lot less time built into making these little turns and turnarounds. And we think overall it's going to perform better. It is going to be more reliable. And we think it's a better application of both what a local bus route should be and also microtransit should be. So we are really excited about it. And again, this change allowed us to make other improvements as well. So we are excited about that. Next slide. So those were the two routes that we're making that were really receiving big changes in terms of like geography, stuff like that. But we are making other changes, and so that I think riders are going to be very excited about. So in terms of buses that are becoming more frequent, routes that are becoming more frequent, I mentioned Route 130, which is the second most utilized bus route in our system. That's now every 30 minutes. That is something that had been, as we were making through the pandemic, and we were having driver shortages, experiencing all the same things that all the other cities across the country are also going through. That route had been, reduced to a higher headway just because we didn't have enough people to run the service. But historically, Route 130 has been a 30-minute route for a very long time. And so we're moving that back up, or we're able to add a bus to that route and make it more frequent and serve a large portion of our ridership. And the same thing for Route 140. Route 140 had been a 45-minute route for a long time, and then it became a 30-minute route. And then it was reduced also during the pandemic. And so we're increasing frequency on that to 35 minutes, which is, we're hoping to get it to be a 30-minute route, but it just wasn't feasible logistically without removing geography. And that's not something we really like to do if we don't have to. But again, both of those routes are becoming more frequent. They're every half hour virtually. And that's, those two routes are both in the top 5 by far in our system. They're very heavily utilized. So we're really excited about those in frequency increases. And frequency increases is something that our ridership has said that they want. And that makes connections with other routes more easy. It reduces people's trip times overall. So frequency is really important. We recognize that, and we are constantly trying to really fine tune our routes as much as possible without making them unreliable. We do want to make sure that they are a headway that can be accomplished throughout the course of the day. But frequency is something we're constantly trying to improve. So, and then I mentioned reliability. So, and we did that in 2 ways for these 3 routes. So Route 112 actually received another bus. So I mentioned we cut Route 109, and Route 130 and Route 140 each received an additional bus to make the frequency. We weren't able to improve frequency on Route 112 by adding a bus to it, which is a little surprising to us on our end, to be honest. We thought we could make that headway a little less. But we know that Route 112 has been really unreliable for quite some time. And so this change should really fix that. So we built more time into the route. So the schedule, what the schedule says on Route 112, that route should be accomplished pretty reliably at this point now, once these changes are in place in December. So we are pretty excited about that. And then Route 114 and Route 320. So what we were able to do, we adjusted the times on each of those routes. And I believe I don't have those backwards. Either way, those two routes, 114 and 320, we took 5 minutes away from the frequency and built that time into the route. And hopefully overall, we think that that should really help with the reliability and those buses being able to stay on time. So Route 114 and 320 were, the reliability should be better, but we did it by taking time away from the route. So it comes a little bit less frequent, but 50 to 55 minutes and 45 minutes to 50 is not too much. So. Okay, so microtransit. We've already talked a little bit about microtransit. Zone 8 in Route 110. I did talk about that some, but again, just to recap. So we have 2 new microtransit zones during the daytime. So it's zones 8 and zones 9. They serve Westview Clinic. Zone 8 will serve Warehouse Market, Westview Clinic, and the Dream Center. As well as the new senior living facility, which is something that hadn't been served. So we're really excited about that zone. And then also the new zone in Zone 9 in Northeast Tulsa. So Amazon, Costco, airport. It's also going to be able to access the zoo. I didn't put that on the slide, but you will be able to get to the zoo. It is outside the zone, but it's a point of interest if you've used that feature on microtransit before. That zone is also accessible by 4 bus routes. So we really think that this is going to be a great attempt. We don't know how successful it'll be, but we think this was a really good attempt at providing public transportation service to these employers, all of these employers in this area. So I think over the course of maybe the next 6 to 9 months, we can make adjustments to this based on need. But we do think this is a really good start. So. And then 2 other changes that are happening for daytime microtransit. Nothing is being taken away, it's all expanded. So Zone 6, our West Tulsa microtransit zone, that zone is actually a daytime and a nighttime zone. But it is being expanded, and this change is actually effective today. I believe it should be on the app. If not, it will be very soon. That zone was expanded down south to Tulsa Hills. So you can now get to Tulsa Hills from that zone during the day or at night. And then also we expanded it north to Goodwill, which was already accessible from the zone, but it was a point of interest. So a place that you can book to outside of a zone as long as you're already within that zone. We just kind of wanted to take any of that confusion away, and we just expanded that zone up to Goodwill. So that's what the changes that are happening in Zone 6. So it's just getting bigger. And then Zone 7, Zone 7 is being moved up 1 mile north across the zone up to 31st Street. So the 4 square miles there, I believe that's Sheridan. Yes, Sheridan all the way to 129th, I believe, is from 31st to 41st will now have microtransit coverage. So for nighttime, so those are the 2 zones that I'd spoken about earlier. So for nighttime, not a lot of changes are happening to the nighttime and Sunday microtransit. We are combining 2 zones. So what was zones 4 and 5, we're consolidating those. The boundaries aren't changing at all whatsoever. It's just making that one big zone, which should be an easier function for our users. And we do get a lot of requests from our customers, why do you have different zones? Why don't you open that up to the whole city, into one big zone? And the main reason is it's just about resources, just kind of logistics, how vehicles move. And, with one person booking a trip from, let's say the far northwest corner all the way to the southeast corner, if we were to do that, we'd actually have to have a lot more vehicles out on the street. And that's a matter of funding. So we would love to actually do that, but it's just that would cut into our other budget, and then we'd be cutting other, daytime routes that actually have a lot higher ridership. So it's all about trade-offs. But that's why we do that. Having the city sectioned out into 5 different zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then also 6. Having that separation and kind of forcing transfers. Overall, that is really the best we can do with the budget, but that's we think it's a pretty good application. Very few people should have to transfer. I don't really see a trip where someone would have to transfer more than once. If so, it's very few. So overall, it works a lot like what our former system did. It's just doing it on a curb to curb basis. So now you can actually book a trip from your home to your actual destination rather than walking to a route, catching that bus route, and then walking to your ultimate destination, or having to transfer and then still do the walking. So this is a really good feature that we're excited about. So some other changes that we are making. So Zone 2 can now access the Admiral Walmart, which wasn't. I believe that wasn't available whenever we did our pilot, but then when we created the other zones, we adjusted the boundaries and that wasn't accessible. But you see that just south of Interstate 244 and a little bit right of that number 3, there's a gray symbol that says Subhub. So that's the Admiral Walmart. And so that destination is accessible from Microtransit Zone 2 on Nightline and Sundays. And then I mentioned earlier with the expansions in Zone 6. So Zone 6 can now access Tulsa Hill Shopping Center, and it also covers the Goodwill on Southwest Boulevard, which we know is a big training center, a big job training center for our community. So, and one other thing I didn't mention on Zone 6, the Gathering Place. So you can now book a trip to the Gathering Place from Microtransit Zone 6. And you can do that in daytime or nighttime. So for the December changes, we recognize that we were trying to provide public transportation service to the Gathering Place through Route 109. And since we are removing Route 109, we do believe that we are able to still provide service to the Gathering Place, but it'll be using Microtransit from Zone 6. So. And I believe this is, it's just a system map. So, okay. So, Brianna, that is my presentation. Do we have some questions? I can't see super well without adjusting some of this stuff. So just go ahead and read them for me if you can.
Yeah, of course. So we'll open the forum to questions. Actually, I'll make a couple of notes on some other changes that aren't related to the routes per se, but we will be changing things come December with our Traveler, our little route guide booklet that you can get at our Denver Avenue station. That will be going away December 10th. And we will be replacing them with pamphlet style maps, and those will be free for the December service changes. So when the December service changes, we will no longer have a booklet and they will be pamphlet style. We have also changed the way we are doing our contact system. So if you have questions or you need customer service or you want to report an issue, safety, anything of that matter, we have changed it. Our info@tulsatransit.org email is no longer active. So we do have a place on our website. If you go to our contact page, we have a system called See Something, Say Something. If you have the GoPass app, it is the little eye icon, and you can actually upload photos of the issue that you see at hand. If there's a mess on the bus or something wrong with a stop, let us know. Or you have customer service questions or need help with something, that is there for you to utilize as well. So I will open the forum to questions, and I do have a question over here. One of it's a statement and then it's a question. Microtransit will be awesome for the older disabled folks, but confusing on how to schedule and that it only runs within a specific zone. So to this statement, I will kind of explain what microtransit is. I know Chase touched base on it a couple of times and kind of explained what it is. So yes, microtransit is a lot like Uber or Lyft, but I will say the difference between us and Uber is we charge $1.75. You can only travel within the zones, and I say within the zones as in you'll be in one vehicle for one zone, and if you have to go to another zone, you will transfer to another vehicle. This is also a ride share, so you will share the ride with other people. It is optimized to pick up other individuals that are on the same route, so it's not making your drive or your destination any longer than it needs to be. Our system really optimizes that. So you also don't have to wait more than 30 minutes for your pickup time, which is another big thing that we push. So that's a little bit about microtransit. And yes, we do have certain zones that are during the day and then some that are at night, because this service is meant to help you get to a bus route. So that's mostly what microtransit is, especially for our daytime. So it's kind of that first mile, last mile type of thing where we get you to that fixed route service to get you where you need to go in the city. So that's kind of how microtransit works in the grand scheme of things. We've got lots of information about this on our website. If you go to our website and you go to microtransit page, it will give you all those details. So the next question I have for you, Chase, is Zone 7 was expanded to 31st between Sheridan and 129th. So what happened to Zone 7, question mark?
Oh, well, yeah, it expanded to 30%. So yeah, so Zone 7, the only change was that it just grew. It got bigger. So instead of stopping on the north side at 41st Street, we moved it up a mile. And so now it's all the way up to 31st. So I believe the boundaries for Zone 7 are north 31st Street on to the north, Sheridan to the west, 129th to the east, and then 61st Street to the south. So, and it does, it's not visible here, but it does make the little jog to serve the health department still, which is just east of 129th. So it still serves that as well. So nothing was taken away from Zone 7. It just grew to the north.
Thank you, Chase.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any more questions at this time, but I'm also going to mention something else about microtransit just because I've received a lot of questions about the service. So on the booking part, I understand it can be really confusing, but the way our system works is if you are booking through the GoPass app, if you're going to your route plans, plan your route, schedule type button on GoPass. If you go there, you type in your location that you're at, and then you type in your destination you want to go. Microtransit will pop up as a logo, and you click on that to continue to book your ride. The microtransit logo will not pop up if you are not in one of the zones that is on our maps, or if you are not, if you're ordering a microtransit vehicle during a time where our service is not offered. So if you're trying to book a, for example, if you're trying to book a vehicle for a nighttime route, but you're in the middle of the day and it's the afternoon, well, that service isn't running, so you're not going to see that option. So that is a little bit of the confusion of microtransit. If you are still having trouble, our call center is always available to help you. I know that we have several individuals who aren't able to have access to cell phones, so with internet service per se, so they are able to call our call center and they can direct you with getting that booked through your phone, or they can book it for you. So those are your kind of two options for microtransit. All right, I'm going to leave it up for about 1 more minute. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the contact page or in the chat box. Chat box. And this video will also be on our website at the end of this week. So check that out if you need a refresher on these changes coming. And just a reminder that all these changes will be implemented on December 10th. So spread the word to your fellow riders. Let them know these changes are coming, so they won't be stuck looking for a bus that never comes.
Yeah, Marley, I see you asking a lot of questions about microtransit, and maybe this is one more distinction I might add to you. A lot of our riders are really familiar with the Lyft, our paratransit service, which you can schedule that, 3 days in advance. Microtransit is different in that regard. Microtransit is not. You mentioned that you think it'll be great for a lot of disabled and elderly populations, and we couldn't agree more. The application for microtransit is really more, it's I want a trip now, or sometime in the next hour. That's really, which is paratransit's really thinking, you have certain trips maybe it's a doctor's appointment that's 3 days away. Microtransit, though it can certainly work in that regard, it is more immediate. So it's thinking it's a little bit more adaptable in the times. You don't have to plan your schedule out 3 days in advance. It's more of a, I know I want to book a microtransit trip here later this afternoon. So you start looking and you're able to book that no more than an hour in advance. So it's really more about immediate needs rather than thinking downstream a little bit. That might help too a little bit. So it is exactly, yeah. Casey said it. It's an on-demand service. So yeah.
Okay, I think we are done with our open forum. If you have a question that comes later, feel free to use that contact page I mentioned a few moments ago. But other than that, thank you for joining us today, and we hope that we helped with these questions.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you all
everyone.
for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.